If I were to go back in time and tell myself 2 years ago everything that was going to happen for him in the next 2 years, I genuinely don't think my younger self would have believed any of it. I want to tell you the story of my first Star Wars fan film, the crazy amount of events that happened that led to that, what happened after that, and how it ultimately changed my life and really has helped me give a new perspective on looking ahead to the future and worrying about what comes next. So the story starts in the summer of 2020. I was planning to make my first Star Wars fan film. I had the script ready, I had everything ready to go. It was basically just like, let's do it. There was an initial delay with the film because we had issues getting actors and getting a date to actually film. But eventually we finally had a date. We settled on a time. I think it was either June or July of 2020, and we were ready to go. It was all gonna happen. And then on the day when we were going to film, the weather was supposed to be like 103, so it was going to be way too hot. Again, this film takes place completely in the desert, and this would have just been a miserable experience. So ultimately, I decided to delay the film. And what transpired between the time of me delaying the film and actually making the film changed, first off, how the film was made, and second off, my trajectory for like the rest of my life, basically. The original plan was to use equipment from my then current high school and film the entire project on that, which had been what I was filming my YouTube videos on and what I'd filmed my previous projects with. But after the summer, we went back to school. That was the year it was completely online because of COVID. And while this was going on, at my dad's school, he works at a high school, not the same one that I went to. It was actually a continuation high school that I never in a million years would have expected to have any real connection to other than the fact that my dad worked there. But one day during the COVID year, my dad comes to me and says, hey, we're trying to make these weekly videos for the school, for the students, to either introduce teachers or show off stuff that's going on behind the scenes and whatnot. And so I'm like, hey, if it's a job, it's a job. He offered to pay me for it. So I was like, sure, I'll edit this video together. And me being the perfectionist that I am, I get the footage and I edit it, and I do the best I can with what I have. But the entire thing was shot on an iPad. The quality isn't great. It's just kind of janky. They tried their best. My dad actually was the one who like filmed the whole thing, and he tried his best. But I went to him and I was like, look, I'm gonna do the best I can with this footage, but it doesn't look great. I think there's a lot that can be improved here. Given that it was the first time we'd done this, and I didn't even know if I was gonna do it again, didn't think too much of it, right? The next week, my dad comes to me again, and he's like, hey, we're trying to keep doing this. We're gonna, do more of these. If you're willing to keep editing them, that's great. And I said, yeah. I was like, hey, if I'm getting paid, it's a job. It's not getting me a lot of money. It's, just side money, but it's still something, and it was relatively easy work. But again, still had the conversations of like, hey, we could up the quality here. I mean, I don't know what the current state of the digital media production at his school was, but I was like, I'm sure there's got to be something. What ended up happening is my dad, we were driving somewhere, and he turns, and we're talking about it, and I was like, yeah, if you get this camera, and it would really up the production quality. Get this camera, get this lens, and it was the exact same camera that I had been borrowing from my then current high school. And surprisingly enough, my dad went to the principal. He was the vice principal at the time, so went to the principal, and he said, go for it. And so they bought a camera. They had a little bit nicer equipment. And so that's what we started making these videos on, and it became more and more of a time commitment because when they did buy the camera, the expectation was I then have to come in to use it. So I now start going to the school, and I'm going to the school, and I'm filming these videos, and I'm seeing the campus, and I'm seeing the teachers, and I'm meeting the teachers, and I'm seeing not at all what I expected, right? I'm thinking, my dad works at a continuation high school. Not to, rag on the school or anything, but when you think of a continuation high school, you don't think of anything that nice, right? It's it's meant for people who are struggling, people who are behind, and people who just need to get caught back up and get back to their normal high school. But what I saw was, first off, teachers with real passion, teachers who really wanted to teach, and teachers who were like really excited about what they were doing. And then I also saw a lot of new and interesting technology. They had 3D printers, they had esports, they had digital media, they had all of this stuff. And I was like, wow, there's a lot here. I mean, this is a really like healthy, creative environment. Like, this is really, really cool. And you know, I start to think, what if I transferred? What if I went here? There's nothing that says I can't. There's nothing against that. And that thought started to, appear in my mind. And this was still fall, winter of 2020. And then we're making the videos, right? And the principal tells my dad, hey, we have some money that we can spend on camera equipment, and we have some money that we can spend to really, beef up the digital media production. And my dad relays this information to me, and he kind of tells me, he's like, we will let you pick out the gear, we'll let you design the camera setups, and maybe get some lighting stuff, just designing, sort of, a section of the digital media production. You get to choose some of the equipment, but there's a caveat. And he says, look, if we're gonna let you do this, because this is obviously kind of a crazy thing, because if we're gonna let you do this, you have to come to the school. And I think one thing to note was that I wasn't entirely happy at the high school that I was at the time. And seeing the passion that I saw, and seeing I saw just like a blank canvas for myself, and I really wanted to just be able to start completely fresh and do that in an environment that was really going to help foster my creativity and be somewhere that I felt like people really cared about me. So that's what I did. I decided to say, hey, this is an unbelievable offer. This is a crazy thing for me to do. I mean, again, I had friends at my current high school. Everything was fine. It wasn't great. It was probably the normal high school experience where you're just kind of like, you get through it, and it is what it is. But I had the opportunity to, in a way, just risk it all and say, let's try something new. I ended up transferring. I ended up getting to pick out a huge list of camera equipment. And that was kind of how I fell in love with the camera that I'm shooting at right now, which is, or not this one, but previous generation, which is the Blackmagic Pocket 6K. That was one of the cameras that I chose to get for the program. I also got the Ursa Mini 12K, which I've shot a bunch of stuff on. I shot most of the doorway on it, most of Chapter 4 on it. Amazing camera, and a camera that I never would have gotten to use if I hadn't had that opportunity. How does this relate back to the Star Wars fan film? Well, now it's winter, and the weather's better for a desert shoot. I say, hey, I've got the Star Wars fan film. I've got all this new equipment. Let's do it. And so that was the first film that I shot on the Pocket 6K. It was the first film that I made that was in 4K, and it looks terrible. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it just looks terrible. I didn't know how to use the camera at all. There was overexposed shots. The color grading was, it was just really bad. But again, that changed everything. I was using their equipment now, and at this point, I had fully committed. So the next year, for my junior year of high school, I would transfer. And without that Star Wars fan film, without it happening at that time, without meeting the people that I did at Canyon, I don't think Children of the Watch would have happened. Because that idea spurred after the Star Wars fan film, which may never have happened if I didn't switch schools, because it was kind of a thing where, like, I had the equipment and I really wanted to make something, and then the timing was right, and everything just lined up at the perfect time, and it was, call it what you will. Call it divine intervention, call it a coincidence, call it whatever. Everything lined up perfectly at that point. And without that happening, it doesn't set off the chain reaction that was the last 2 years of my life. The rest is kind of history. I make the Star Wars fan film, I make Children of the Watch, I fully commit to the school. I get fully invested in esports. I made some amazing videos there and just had the best 2 years of my life just working, with the teachers and finishing up high school and just getting a fresh start and meeting new people and making new friends. And it was just perfect. And it was exactly what I needed. And then ultimately, that led me to making certain decisions that led me right here. And yet, when I look back on it, I realize there's no way, there's literally no way for me to have known that this is what was going to happen. And there were so many nights over the last 3 years till today, till the last night, where I worry about the future, where I think, what is going to happen? Where am I going to end up? Am I going to be successful? Am I going to get a job? Am I going to be able to make a career as a filmmaker? And I realized that maybe I will, maybe I won't. But spending time stressing about that, spending time worrying about that, worrying about something that not only can I not control, but I almost can't predict. There's so many things that are going to happen. There's so many events and experiences and things that I will do over the course of probably the next year or two that will forever change the trajectory of my life. But I don't know what those things are. I don't know when they're going to happen. I don't know how they're going to happen. And there's no way for me to know that. So I shouldn't worry about it. And it's hard not to. I'm not going to act like it's not. You want to know what's going to happen. You want to know that everything's going to be okay in the future. But that's just not how it works. And it's just not something that you should spend your energy on and stress yourself out over. It's okay to think about it. It's okay to work towards your future. It's okay to always have goals and be shooting for those goals. But understand that in the long run, so many things are going to happen, and it's going to be impossible for you to know exactly what is going to happen or exactly what decisions you need to make and exactly what things you need to do. So just live your life. Just do your best, work towards your goals, and don't stress about what you can't control.